When I was in college, my diet was absolutely horrific. I'm talking Taco Bell and frozen pizzas and sugar and junk food every single day. And on top of that, I barely exercised. I knew this was bad, and I made an effort to change very frequently. Like every couple months, I would have that moment of like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna make the change. I'm gonna start being healthy. I'm gonna start exercising, eating clean. And I would do it for like a day or 3 days or a week, but slowly and surely, I would eventually go back to my baseline. This was a general trend in my life. I wasn't happy with my health, but I didn't have the discipline and the willpower and the consistency to actually fix it. I wasn't happy with my career prospects. I was seeing friends get internships and job offers and all these crazy things, and I was sitting there with nothing, and I was like, crap, I'm getting left behind. And yet, I couldn't get myself to do the things that I knew I needed to do. Now fast forward, here I am at 28. I'm in the best shape of my life. I have more energy than I've ever had at any other point in my life, which is crazy to say. My dating life is solid. Career-wise, things are very promising. I have a good career in tech. I'm experimenting with new things on YouTube. I'm not saying this stuff to show off, I promise. I'm saying this stuff to highlight the fact that over the course of my 20s, I had to learn this stuff the hard way. I had to learn how to be consistent and disciplined and stick to the things that I know I need to be doing. I'm going to share with you 3 tips that I've learned to actually keep yourself consistent and disciplined in the habits that you know you need to be doing. And the first one is to visualize what you need to be doing, and also visualize what things would be like if you don't go down that path and do the things that you need to do. Look, life is a series of decisions. Every single day, you're faced with thousands of little decisions that the cumulative effect of all of those decisions will determine where you go, right? Like what you accomplish, what you may not accomplish. And so whatever habit you're trying to build up on, like I was talking earlier about my health, right? Whatever that habit is, every single day, you are probably faced with decisions related to that thing, right? So with your health, the decisions that you have to make are, should I eat the cookie or should I eat the salad? Every single day, you're faced with these decisions. And a lot of times, these decisions come down to instant versus delayed gratification, right? If you go with the instant gratification route, you eat the cookie, you go to McDonald's, you're giving yourself short-term pleasure, but you're giving yourself long-term pain. The way that you can get your mind to consistently make the decision that delays gratification, whether it's food or exercise or diet or whatever, is to tie a vision of what things will be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if you consistently choose to go down the path of delaying gratification rather than instant gratification. And you also want to create a vision for what things will be like if you go down the bad path, if you go down the instant gratification path too much. Now, at the time when I actually finally fixed my health, and actually finally started consistently eating clean and consistently going to the gym, through a stroke of luck, I ended up falling into a place where I started to have those visions of like what things will be like if I keep going down the bad path versus the good path. And that kind of naturally and organically put me on a path where I started delaying gratification more often and more readily. What happened was I was living in Seattle at the time, and I was walking up a hill. If you're familiar with Seattle, it's got tons of hills. Walking up a hill, and halfway through I have a back spasm. The next morning I wake up and it's bad. Like it's like a severe amount of pain. And the worst part about this was the one like consistent thing of exercise that I would do back then was skiing. I loved to ski. I would go all the time with my friends, and I still do. I got hurt in December. Now at that point, it's so funny how these things work out, but like at that point, I finally started to like pay for the fast food and the crappy diet as well. I was starting to get like digestive problems and bloating, and so here I am sitting there at 24 with a bad back and digestive problems and bloating and all of this while my friends are out there skiing and having fun. And I was like, fuck this, dude. Like, if this is what it's like at 24, what's it gonna be like at 34, 44? Like, it's only gonna get worse if I keep doing this shit. And so that was the moment where I started to really think about like, damn, like if I, like, look, when I was 20 and 21, 22, I could do whatever I wanted to my body and just felt invincible because, I was 21. Even at 24, it started to catch up to me. The fact that I had never lifted weights, the fact, like consistently, I would go for like a week, but like the fact that I had never consistently lifted weights, the fact that I was eating shitty food for probably 5 years at that point, it was starting to catch up. And I started to see, if I keep doing this, this is where I'm going to go. But if I change, I can get back to normal. Like I see people at 30, 35, 40 who are in better shape than me. So it's like, there's nothing stopping me from doing this. I just have to start making that decision. And then it started to click in my head, okay, like every time I make this decision to like instant gratification, eat the donuts or whatever, I had the vision and I started to think of myself sitting there with a bad back and bloating and digestion problems and stuff while my friends are out there skiing and having fun. And I thought about what it would be like 5-10 years from now if I kept doing that and started to really put on a lot of weight and lose my hair and my skin was going bad and aging and all of this. And it scared the shit out of me. But I also started to think, damn, you know, if I start going to the gym, I could look like that guy on Instagram. If I start going to the gym, you know, I can ski even better, right? Like I'll be able to do harder trails and stuff like that. And so once I started doing that, it became a positive feedback loop, because even after like 3 weeks of starting to lift weights, once my back got better, but like even after 3-4 weeks of starting to lift weights and like eat a little bit cleaner, like it was crazy how much better I felt just after like 3 weeks of changing things. And so once that got in, like then the positive feedback loop started to go, because it wasn't even just an association with like a vision anymore. At that point, the vision was starting to come true. And that's when it gets really powerful. And so that's my advice, is really strongly visualize both what things will be like if you go down the instant gratification path, but also if you delay gratification. And this applies to whatever habit you're trying to build, because most of them kind of fall in that same paradigm. Whether you're trying to improve your dating life or your career or your health, your mental health, you know, if you're trying to like start improving your mental health, journaling, meditation, it's not like that stuff is as fun as scrolling on TikTok in the moment. You're delaying gratification, but you're doing it for a good purpose, for a good reason. And so whatever it is that you're trying to do, think strongly and critically, not just about what it means to do it in that moment, right? Because it's like one TikTok session that you skip the meditation, it's not like that's gonna change your life. But if you scroll TikTok every day for a year instead of meditating every day for a year, that's gonna fucking make a difference. So that's what I would recommend. Think about the long-term effects of doing that thing versus whatever you're trying to actually do. And that's gonna make a big impact. The second tip that I have, start simple and then introduce complexity later. What do I mean? Well, there I am at 24. I'd recovered from my back injury. I'm gonna start lifting weights, right? Like this is it. I'm gonna start lifting weights, and I mean it this time, right? I followed step one, and I started Googling what is the best lifting routine, and I went on YouTube. That's where I get a lot of my information from. And so I see 15, 20 videos, all from different YouTubers, all with the check mark. They're all like big 1 million+ subscriber YouTubers. And I go on these 15 different videos, and each one of them is saying to do a different routine. You know what you need to be doing when you're first starting out. The biggest thing is to just start lifting weights. Like, don't overcomplicate this stuff, man. Every single lifter, every single YouTuber, every single person in the gym will agree that the core fundamentals of a good lifting program for most people, assuming you don't have like mobility issues and things like that, but for the vast majority of people, the big compound lifts, if you center a routine around the big heavy compound lifts, deadlifts, squats, bench press, overhead, pull-ups, rows, things like that, that's gonna get you like 90% of the results. There's something called the Pareto distribution, if you've heard of that, where 20% of the effort gets you about 80% of the results. And we see this across the board, right? Like a lot of sales organizations, like 20% of the salesmen will get 80% of the sales. Money is distributed in a similar way, right? Like the top 20% has a huge amount of the money. Coding, right? I was at Microsoft, 20% of the engineers write 80% of the code and deliver 80% of the results. And I swear, man, the 20% like minimal lifting routine of just doing the 5 or 6 big compound lifts every single week and getting stronger in those key lifts every single week, progressive overload. If you do that, you're gonna get like 80, 85, maybe even 90% of the results that the guy who's doing the crazy, you know, YouTuber 15 line workout. Like, of course you can optimize beyond the initial like minimal workout, but the point is, if you overwhelm yourself with too much information at the start, before you even make a habit of going to the gym, before you even make a habit of signing up for the gym, right? Before you start doing these basic things, before you have the baseline of like, I am now someone who goes to the gym, that's part of my identity. If you overwhelm yourself with so much information, 15 different YouTubers, each with 5 or 6 different videos, they all conflict with each other. It's like, you're gonna get overwhelmed, and oftentimes you're gonna be filled with analysis paralysis and not even start. That's the problem. That is the problem. It's the same thing with your diet, right? Like, dude, if you're sitting there like I was, or even like not quite as bad as I was, like eating Taco Bell and junk food and sugar all the time, like, yes, technically, you could find that there's some benefit in keto versus paleo versus vegan, carnivore, all of these different things. But at the end of the day, 90% of your results are gonna come from cutting out the bullshit and just eating like clean, unprocessed food, right? And so once you get used to that, then you can optimize and try keto or paleo or vegan or whatever. And there's less risk of doing that, because when you try a more complex system and maybe it doesn't work out, you're not going to go back to the baseline of eating Taco Bell. You're going to go back to the baseline of just like eating clean, unprocessed food. Establishing that baseline of like the minimal like 20% that gets you the 80%, like establishing that as a baseline, whether it's with diet or lifting or whatever else, it's going to help you stick with things. It reduces the bar for making that good habit a reality significantly, because you're not going to be overloading your mind with too much information. You're not going to be sitting there with this complex, like crazy new cumbersome habit that you need to integrate into your life. That's it for my second tip, is just start simple. Do the minimal 20% that gets you 80% of the results. A lot of times you'll find that that's enough, and that there's no point in investing significantly more to get marginally better gains. If you do feel like you want to do that, then absolutely go for it. But do it once you make a habit of doing the basics. And finally, number 3, don't do it alone. When I first joined the gym in Seattle and I was going consistently and I was actually starting to lift weights, I was very lucky. I didn't plan on this, but I had a couple friends who were already at the gym. And they had a couple like gym friends too. So I already had this like group of people that I would see on a daily basis. And I can tell you, this made it so much better. Like going to the gym and actually seeing my friends there, it made me want to go to the gym in a way that I wouldn't have wanted to if I was just going with my headphones on. And on top of that, it's like this healthy competition, right? As a guy, I'm like sitting there like, this fucking guy's benching more than me? No, absolutely not. And that, it gets you to step up, it gets you to push yourself. When you see your friends succeeding and killing it, you're psyched for them, but you're also like, God damn it, I gotta go. I gotta get my ass in gear. It fuels you, it gives you this sense of purpose and drive. And on top of that, having people who have already been in this struggle, who are already in the trenches with you, whether they're trying to improve their health or their career, dating life, whatever it may be, mental health, having people who have already gone through those struggles, who know what it's like to be in that situation, whether it's like a technical situation, like a technical question that you have about like a certain lift or whatever, or if it's just more of like an emotional thing where it's like you feel like you are struggling to stay consistent, you're struggling to keep motivated. If you have that camaraderie, that sense of brotherhood, it's gonna push you, it's gonna give you that extra edge, and it's gonna make you a lot more likely to actually stick to it. So those are my 3 tips. I hope you liked this video. If you found it useful, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.